Welcome to World War II Ashes. Learn the untold.
The 9th of April, 1940, 04:15 a.m. cold salt air cuts across the fjord. Engines growl low and steady, vibrating through steel decks slick with frost. Somewhere in the dark, metal scrapes metal. Orders are whispered, not shouted. Boots thud softly. The smell of fuel, wet rope, and the sea hangs heavy as the coastline of Norway rises out of the black water, silent, immense, and unaware that history is already moving toward it. Searchlights suddenly snap on. A beam slices through mist. Then another. The stillness fractures. Sirens wail. Gunfire cracks across the water, sharp and echoing, ricocheting off rock walls older than memory. In the confined throat of the Oslofjord, war has arrived without warning. At the same moment, hundreds of kilometers south, Denmark is waking up to the sound of aircraft. It is not thunder. It is not a storm. It is the mechanical roar of invasion rolling across flat fields and quiet towns before the sun has fully risen. This is the morning Scandinavia falls. Only hours earlier, Europe was already deep in war. Poland had been crushed the previous autumn. Britain and France were technically at war with Germany, yet the Western Front remained eerily quiet in what newspapers called the phony war. But beneath that calm, pressure was building, strategic, economic, and brutal. Scandinavia mattered more than it seemed. For Germany, iron ore was the lifeblood of its war industry. Swedish iron, shipped through the Norwegian port of Narvik during winter months, was critical for producing tanks, guns, and ships. Without it, the war machine would slow. Perhaps stall. British planners knew this too. Discussions were already underway in London and Paris about mining Norwegian waters or even landing troops, under the pretext of helping Finland during the Winter War against the Soviet Union. Hitler did not wait to be outmaneuvered. The plan was called Operation Weserubung, the invasion of Denmark and Norway, executed simultaneously. It was bold, risky, and unlike anything Germany had attempted before. Naval forces, airborne troops, and ground units would strike multiple targets at once. Major cities. Key ports. Airfields. The goal was speed and surprise. Overwhelmed before resistance could organize, Denmark came first. At dawn on the 9th of April, 1940, German troops crossed the Danish border. Paratroopers landed near key bridges and airfields. Warships appeared off Copenhagen. German aircraft flew low over the capital, a deliberate show of force. The Danish government faced an impossible choice. Their army was small. Their air force obsolete. Civilian casualties were a real and immediate threat. After only a few hours of fighting, brief, scattered, and costly, Denmark capitulated. It was one of the shortest campaigns of the war. Fewer than 1,000 Danish soldiers were killed or wounded. By mid-morning, Denmark was occupied, but Norway would not fall so quietly. Norway was long, mountainous, and fiercely independent. Its geography was both a shield and a trap: deep fjords, narrow valleys, unpredictable weather. German planners knew the risks. Naval losses could be catastrophic. Yet the prize was enormous: control of the Norwegian coast, denial of bases to the British, and secure iron ore routes. The invasion began at multiple points along the coast: Oslo, Kristiansand, Stavanger, Bergen, Trondheim, and Narvik. German warships pushed into fjords in darkness, counting on surprise and confusion. In several places, it worked. In others, it went horribly wrong. Back in the Oslofjord, the German heavy cruiser Blücher leads the formation toward the capital. On board are over 2,000 soldiers, Gestapo personnel, and administrators, men intended to seize Oslo and capture the Norwegian government in a single stroke. Confidence is high. Intelligence suggests minimal resistance. What they do not know is that an old fortress still guards the narrowest point of the fjord. Oscarsborg Fortress is outdated. Its guns are old. Its crew is largely made up of reservists and recruits. Yet its commander, Colonel Brügger Eriksen, understands one thing with terrifying clarity: if this ship passes, Norway's leadership may be captured within hours. At 4:21 a.m., he gives the order. The fortress guns fire. .2 massive shells slam into Blücher at point-blank range. Flames erupt. Ammunition ignites. Then torpedoes, fired from an underground battery few believed operational, tear into the cruiser's hull. The ship lists, burns, and slowly capsizes. Hundreds die in the freezing water. Oslo is not taken that morning. That single decision, made in seconds, with incomplete information, changes everything. The Norwegian king and government escape. Resistance begins to organize. Time, precious and limited, is bought with fire and steel. Meanwhile, German paratroopers seize the airfield at Fornebu after initial resistance. Luftwaffe aircraft land almost immediately. Control of the skies begins to tilt. Elsewhere, similar patterns unfold. In Stavanger, airborne troops secure Sola airfield, the first combat parachute drop in history used to capture an airfield. In Bergen and Trondheim, German ships force their way into harbors under coastal gunfire. At Narvik, far above the Arctic Circle, 10 German destroyers unload mountain troops. Snow falls. The port changes hands. But the German Navy pays dearly. British forces will soon counterattack, and the icy waters will become a graveyard for ships on both sides. The invasion shocks the world. In London, disbelief turns into urgency. The Royal Navy sorties north. Allied troops, British, French, Polish, prepare to land in Norway. The Quiet War is over. In Berlin, early success is tempered by unexpected losses. Several German warships are sunk or damaged beyond repair. The Kriegsmarine will never fully recover from it. For civilians in Scandinavia, life fractures overnight. Blackouts. Occupation. Uncertainty. The fear of collaboration and the fear of resistance pull societies apart. Ordinary people, fishermen, clerks, teachers, are forced to choose how to survive under foreign rule, and hovering over all of it is a question that will define the months to come. Germany has struck fast. Denmark has fallen. Norway is burning but not yet broken. Allied forces are on the move, seas are filling with warships, and the weather itself is turning hostile. The gamble has been made, but as battles spread from fjords to mountain passes, and as the first Allied boots touch Norwegian soil, one unsettling question hangs in the cold northern air: has Germany moved too early, or just in time?
Late April 1940. Snowmelt trickles down rock faces into the fjords. The air smells of wet earth, cordite, and burning fuel. Warships lie half-submerged in icy water, their hulls still warm beneath the freezing surface. Overhead, aircraft engines pulse through low cloud, never fully disappearing, never allowing silence to return. Norway has become a battlefield. After the shock of the invasion, the war here slows into something colder, harder, and more uncertain. Germany holds the major ports and airfields, but control beyond them is fragile. Mountain roads are narrow. Weather changes by the hour. Supply lines stretch thin along the coast and through the air. And now, Allied forces are arriving. British naval power dominates the sea. Almost immediately after the invasion, the Royal Navy begins aggressive operations along the Norwegian coast. German destroyers, short on fuel and ammunition, are hunted relentlessly. In the Offitfjord near Narvik, British warships strike first, sinking several German destroyers at anchor. Days later, a second battle finishes the job. All 10 German destroyers sent to Narvik are lost. For the Kriegsmarine, it is a disaster. German surface fleet losses during the Norwegian campaign are staggering. 1 heavy cruiser sunk, 2 light cruisers badly damaged, multiple destroyers destroyed. The German Navy will be largely confined to port for much of the rest of the war. The invasion succeeds, but at a cost few had anticipated on land. The fighting becomes intimate and brutal. Allied troops land at several points, including Andelsens and Namsos, hoping to push inland toward Trondheim and cut German forces in two. French Alpine troops, experienced in mountain warfare, arrive alongside British infantry. Polish units, many already displaced by the fall of their own country, join the fight. They are brave, motivated, and completely unprepared for Norway. Maps are inaccurate. Roads are scarce. Snow and mud slow movement to a crawl. German aircraft dominate the skies, attacking ports, roads, and supply dumps with near impunity. Without air cover, Allied positions become vulnerable the moment they are established. German forces, meanwhile, adapt quickly. Airlift becomes crucial. transport aircraft, fly troops, artillery, and supplies directly into captured airfields, bypassing the dangerous seas. It is one of the earliest large-scale demonstrations of air power sustaining a ground campaign. The war in Norway is becoming something new. In the mountains north of Oslo, Norwegian units fight, delaying actions, blowing bridges, and harassing German columns. The Norwegian king, Haakon VII, refuses German demands to appoint a collaborationist government. His refusal becomes a symbol of resistance, broadcast by radio and carried by word of mouth. Morale stiffens. Even as territory is lost, at Narvik, the Allies achieve their greatest success. After weeks of fighting in snowstorms and sub-zero temperatures, Allied forces push the Germans out of the town. It is the first clear Allied victory of the war. For a brief moment, it feels like momentum has shifted. German mountain troops retreat into the surrounding hills. Narvik, battered and burning, is back in Allied hands. But even as flags change, events elsewhere are overtaking the campaign. On May 10, 1940, Germany launches its offensive in the west, through the Netherlands, Belgium, and into France. The scale is enormous. The speed is shocking. Suddenly, Norway is no longer the main theater of war. British and French leaders face an impossible calculation: continue a costly campaign in the Arctic or pull back to defend their own countries from collapse. The decision is made quietly, then decisively. Allied forces begin to withdraw at night. Under Luftwaffe attack, troops embark from Norwegian ports. Equipment is destroyed or abandoned. Roads are left empty. Norwegian units, informed too late or not at all, realize they are being left behind. The sense of betrayal is sharp, though rarely spoken aloud. Narvik is evacuated. Again, for German forces, relief is immediate. Reinforcements pour in. Air superiority tightens. One by one, remaining pockets of resistance are crushed or isolated. On June 7, 1940, King Haakon and the Norwegian government leave the country aboard a British cruiser, bound for exile in London. 3 days later, Norway capitulates. Occupation begins in Denmark. Occupation has already settled into an uneasy routine. The Danish government remains in place, cooperating under pressure. Daily life continues, outwardly calm. But beneath that calm, resistance networks slowly form. Illegal newspapers circulate. Sabotage will come later. For now, survival takes precedence. Norway's occupation is harsher from the start. The coastline becomes a fortress. German troops flood in. Eventually, over 300,000 soldiers will be stationed there. Airfields, submarine pens, radar stations, and coastal artillery batteries are constructed at enormous cost. Norway becomes a shield for Germany's northern flank and a base for operations into the Atlantic. It also becomes a prison. Political opponents are arrested. Jewish citizens are registered, then later deported. Teachers, priests, and students quietly resist through refusal, delay, and underground networks. The Norwegian merchant fleet, one of the largest in the world, escapes abroad and becomes a vital asset for the Allied war effort. The Fall of Scandinavia reshapes the war far beyond its borders. Britain loses the ability to directly threaten German iron or supplies. Germany secures access to critical resources and strategic depth. The Atlantic war intensifies. New technologies, radar, airborne assault, combined arms operations, are tested and refined under extreme conditions. And there are personal consequences. In Britain, political fallout from the Norwegian campaign brings down Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. His failure to prevent the invasion and the bungled Allied response destroys confidence in his leadership. A new Prime Minister takes office, one whose voice and resolve will soon define the war. Winston Churchill. Scandinavia has fallen, but the war has changed. The speed, coordination, and audacity of Germany's operations send shockwaves through military planners everywhere. Old assumptions crumble. New fears take their place. If Germany can seize Denmark and Norway in weeks, what else is possible? And as Europe reels, another realization begins to surface. Quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. The fall of Scandinavia was not an end. It was a warning of a new kind of war, moving faster than governments, faster than plans, and faster than anyone had truly prepared for. And the next blow is already forming. June 1940. The midnight sun hangs low over northern Norway, refusing to set. Light lingers on empty roads, abandoned gun positions, and fjords crowded with silence. The echoes of battle are gone now. What remains is occupation and memory. German flags fly over coastal towns. Boots march where fishing boats once unloaded their catch. Radios hum with foreign voices. For many Norwegians and Danes, the war does not end with surrender. It simply changes shape. In Norway, resistance does not disappear. It goes underground. Teachers refuse to teach Nazi ideology and are arrested. Clergy speak in careful words that still carry defiance. Students pass messages hidden in books. Along the coast, fishermen become couriers, slipping across the North Sea in small boats under cover of darkness, carrying agents, intelligence, and hope. Some never return. The Germans respond with pressure, surveillance, and fear. The Gestapo expands its reach. Prisons fill. Executions follow acts of sabotage. The cost of resistance is real, and everyone knows it. Yet it continues. Denmark's path is different, but no less complex. For 3 years, the country remains under a policy of cooperation, its government intact, its institutions functioning. This uneasy balance saves lives in the short term, but it also raises painful questions after the war. What is survival, and what is surrender? Where does pragmatism end and collaboration begin? In 1943, even this fragile arrangement collapses. Strikes spread. Sabotage increases. The German response hardens. And when orders come to deport Danish Jews, something extraordinary happens. Ordinary citizens act. Neighbors warn neighbors. Fishermen ferry families across narrow waters to neutral Sweden. Over 7,000 people escape. It is one of the most remarkable rescue efforts of the war. In Norway, the coastline becomes one of the most heavily fortified regions on Earth. Concrete bunkers rise from cliffs. Massive guns point toward the sea. Radar stations watch the horizon. Submarine pens are carved into rock. Thousands of forced laborers, prisoners of war, political prisoners, are worked to exhaustion building defenses for a German invasion that never comes. Hitler is obsessed with Norway. He believes an Allied landing is inevitable. Divisions that could have fought elsewhere remain tied down, guarding fjords and beaches. In this way, Scandinavia continues to shape the war. Even in stillness, etc., the consequences ripple outward. German U-boats operate from Norwegian bases, slipping into the Atlantic to attack Allied shipping. Convoys grow larger. Escort tactics improve. Radar, sonar, and code breaking evolve rapidly. The struggle for control of the sea becomes a war within the war, and always, above it all, is air power. The lessons learned in 1940 are absorbed quickly. Air superiority proves decisive. Airlift proves revolutionary. Surprise, speed, and coordination redefine what modern warfare looks like. Military planners on all sides take notes. Some of those notes will be used again, on a far larger scale. Years passed. By 1945, the tide has turned. Germany is collapsing from within and without. In Scandinavia, the end comes quietly. In Denmark, German forces surrender without major fighting. In Norway, liberation arrives by sea and air. Crowds gather. Flags reappear from hiding. Bells ring. Exiles return, but the scars remain. Ships lie rusting at the bottom of fjords. Graves dot remote hillsides. Families count those who never came back. The war in Scandinavia was brief compared to others, but its impact was deep, strategic, and lasting. It reshaped leadership. It changed governments. It accelerated innovation. It revealed both the fragility and resilience of small nations caught between great powers, and it leaves behind a question that still matters. What does it mean to fall? Denmark fell in hours, yet preserved lives and later saved thousands. Norway fought longer, lost more, and became a symbol of defiance and endurance. Neither story fits neatly into victory or defeat. The fall of Scandinavia was not just about territory. It was about choices made under pressure, in darkness, with incomplete information and irreversible consequences. Those choices echo forward. Modern military doctrine still studies Weserübung, airborne assaults, joint operations, logistical reach, the thin line between bold strategy and catastrophic risk, the human cost of miscalculation. And for those who walk the fjords today or cross the flat Danish countryside, the war feels distant, but not gone. Concrete bunkers still stand. Rusted gun emplacements still face the sea. History is not buried here. It is exposed, weathered, and waiting to be noticed. Perhaps that is the final legacy of Scandinavia's fall, not just a lesson in how wars are won or lost, but a reminder of how quickly peace can fracture, how suddenly the ordinary can become extraordinary, and how individual decisions, made in moments of fear or courage, can redirect the course of history. The question is not whether it could happen again. The question is whether we would recognize the signs, before the sirens, before the searchlights, before the quiet breaks. And when that moment comes, what choice would we make?
Thanks for watching this chapter of World War II. If you find this video helpful, please support us by liking and dropping a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch the next chapter of this series. Until then, take care.